Hello and welcome. Whether we like it or not, the bottom line fact is Pakistan is making news. It seems to be at the center of all international conspiracy theories, of all international conspiracies. Unfortunately, wherever there is a terrorist activity or a moment of threat, Pakistanis wait for that moment where their name will be taken. Is it justified or not is a completely different discussion. In the recent few weeks, we've seen the United States and the West point fingers at Pakistan very openly, accusing us of being the hub of terrorism, as the final frontier for combating terrorism. Is Pakistan really that? Of course, as a journalist, I would say no. But what are the facts? Are we doing our best to fight the world's war against terrorism or not? Those are the questions. And I'm fortunate enough today to have Lieutenant General retired Mr. Hameed, a highly decorated officer, with me. John Saab, thank you very much.
Thank you.
It seems that the Western world apparently wants to destabilize Pakistan. Is that a fact?
Not really. I don't think so. I don't contribute to that idea. But there are interested parties who are running the West, their system, their direction, and the world order, and now the new world order. Pakistan happens to be a square peg in the round hole of the new world order. It just doesn't fit. Or in fact, in any world order, it will not fit. It won't be an ideological country. It won't owe allegiance to its birth and to its original pristine vision if it was to surrender to the global imperialism or to the Hindu Brahmanism or even to communism, which is gone now, which is no more. State communism is no more. So it is no wonder, therefore, because this seems to be a historic paradox in this, that while they need Pakistan, and they have always used Pakistan,
Sure.
and now China needs Pakistan because of its strategic location and because of many other reasons, because it is food self-sufficient. In fact, we are the net exporter of cereals and other things. All those things which can sustain a nation, like textile, pharmaceutical industry, food grain, water resources, etc., etc., we are surplus. And therefore, Pakistan can't be done down also at the same time. They may want to do this, but can you imagine that Pakistan is the harbinger, has to be, and it was to be, according to vision of Quaid-e-Azam and Allama Iqbal, to bring in the new, usher in the new system and to give it to the humanity. It is embedded in our constitution when the objective resolution toward the end, if you read it, says Pakistan has to carve out a place for itself among the community of nations in order that it may serve the cause of peace and happiness of humanity. No other constitution in the world says this, because they are bound by the narrow nationalism. Pakistan isn't bound by narrow state nationalism, and therefore Pakistan is a challenge to them. There is no doubt about it. But to who? Most of all, India, of course, physically it is a challenge because they haven't accepted. But to the state of Israel, because there were two states born at the same time in history. I would say same moment in history, because they came up in 1948 and we were born. And if you recall, hark back to the era when Muslim movement was going on, what we describe as the Pakistan movement for creation of Pakistan, the Muslim League resolutions about Balfour Declaration and about the forthcoming state of Israel at that time, so violently the state of Israel.
True.
Quaid-e-Azam is on record to have said that we will clash with this illegitimate state. And there are so many resolutions. So no wonder that from Ben Gurion to Netanyahu now, there is a long line of the Israeli leaders who have always identified and named it as such. Pakistan is our enemy number one. Now it is nuclear, it is deemed to be jihadi, it is this, that, the other. At that time it was nothing. It was a fledgling little state. And yet Ben Gurion was looking at Pakistan as enemy number one. Why was he doing
Even
this?
in our earliest days.
Yes, very early days, very early days. So there is a historic conflict in which we are now
between Pakistan
engaged.
and Israel.
Between Pakistan, Israel, and as a whole global imperialism. We are nothing. Pakistan is nothing if it is not anti-imperialism.
Pakistan is nothing. It's not entire. That's in the very first answer. You've opened a full Pandora's box of questions for me.
Thank you.
In the very beginning, you said that it's not the West, but some people who control the West. So I'm assuming you're pointing a finger towards Israel and the whole Jewish lobby and the
Yes, but
economic
you see
strength
then
there.
automatically, because West becomes or engaged in it, because West is being driven by the economic order which has been given to them by the Jews. And we know that the world Jewry is pitted against another alternative system emerging. What was wrong with communism? System was the bone of contention. Otherwise, they have nothing against Russia.
True.
Russia is still dominating, controlling so much territory of Asia
And resources.
because they have colonized that territory and the resources as well. So whole of Siberia is still the largest country territorially in the world. But they have nothing against Russia. White man heritage, number one, and then the system. As long as Russia was asking, vying, trying to follow a different system, it was an enemy. But the moment they have embraced the system, that then Karl Marx is gone, Adam Smith is now the order of the day. But it doesn't mean that Adam Smith has satisfied the requirements of the mankind. There is a new system has to emerge, it has to come. The humanity is groaning under deprivation, under inequalities, under bloodshed, aggression and colonization. You talk of the Western democracies, have they not embarked on colonization?
Sure.
So what kind of
The word
democracies are
colonization
they?
came from them actually.
Yes,
They were
they
the
came
first
from them.
colonizers of history.
Are they slave trading,
Absolutely.
drug trading, opium war against China? Because they wouldn't buy opium, so they said, we will give it to you.
The weapons trade.
So you can see that there is a dark impulse in the Western system.
Okay. You said that Pakistan is nothing unless if it's opposing imperialism. Some people would say, God, that's a declaration of war, or you just on a very basic principle you're saying we have to fight them.
No, I'm not saying that we are not waging war against them. They are waging war against us. That's what the history
Against
tells.
our principle and against
Against
our
our
philosophy.
principle, or what is to emerge. Unfortunately, we haven't yet been able to manifest in the systems that we hold so dear, and which are intrinsic to our very being. We have not, because Quaid-e-Azam used to say this has to be a laboratory house. Pakistan is not end in itself, but means to an end.
Where it has to
It was
evolve
a
and it has
stepping
to grow.
stone. It has evolved and it has to give to the world a new system based on the principles enshrined in Islam. Those were the, almost verbatim. That's what Quaid-e-Azam used to say. So really it was what? A clash of systems. But when Pakistan was being created at that time, state communism was really becoming very powerful and the world was rallying around it, the have-nots, the poor people of the world. But that doesn't mean that imperialism, colonialism and all those trappings of imperialism, they are acceptable now because communism is gone. So they have identified now Islam as the new enemy, and they have said so much about it. But Pakistan is the sort of a symbol of it, because Pakistan was created for Islam, No other country in the world has been created for
Okay.
Islam.
When you say this, that Islam is the new order, immediately this red flag goes up which says that here comes Pakistan, who is this Islamic terrorist, fundamentalist, to be forcing down our ideology, because apparently, at least not obviously, no other country uses religion as a force or a philosophy. We are the only ones who do that. So that is being used against us. Is that not correct?
Why not Israel? On the Knesset it is written that this is our religion is Judaism.
Sure, but they're not telling the whole world to become Jewish, or they're not saying that Judaism is the final order. But we are. We say
No,
Islam
but-
is the final order.
But how come they are? This is what they're saying. This is where the conflict is, because they did not accept the Prophet of Islam
Okay.
at that time. That's the basic conflict, because they don't accept
But
this.
can we today fight ideological wars based on religion? Is that fair?
No, I am not saying the ideological war. We have not. Islam is not irredentist, is not expansionist, except that it gives dawa. Dawa means
That's an
message.
invitation.
Proselytization. I mean, you move and you say, and you say it's logical.
But Christianity does that as well.
No, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said Quran is nothing but it is burhan, means it's logic, reason. Christianity, the fundamental difference between Western democracies and us is not understood. Bible is not a book of law. Quran is a book of law.
Absolutely.
That's the fundamental difference.
Very well said.
So that is why
That's
when
what completes the religions.
the modern democracies actually evolved and emerged as a result of the power of the clergy, which was unjust, unfair. And they were not following the Bible, because Bible doesn't say that.
True.
You see, so Bible has only a sort of, what you can say, it's about the praise for Allah and about doing good deeds, etc. But does it give an economic system? Does it give a political system? Does it talk about this system and that
Diplomacy
system?
or democracy. It doesn't talk of anything. It does
Doesn't
not talk
talk
of
about it.
governance. It does not talk about
But
the
what
law.
about Quran? From A to Z, everything is given in Quran. That's why it's called a complete package.
So this is the new order,
This
and
is
it is
the new
perfectly all right for us.
And
to
this is
think
being
that's it.
blocked.
And
This is being blocked. This is what the humanity needs. And let me tell you also, Christianity is for Christians, Judaism for the Jews, Islam is for humanity. Rabbul Alameen, Rahmatul lil Alameen. Is there any mention of
Allah addresses the whole
is there
world,
any
the
mention
universe.
of our Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam being called I mean, he is known as
the king of
Prophet
the Jews,
Islam.
if I may, as blatantly as Jesus Christ is called the king of the Jews.
No,
It-
but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given him the title Rahmatul lil Alameen.
Absolutely.
Allah, Rahmatul lil Alameen means for
For all
everybody.
mankind.
Yeah. That's why Quran repeatedly says, do not divide, get united and treat everybody equally. It doesn't mean Muslims. Islam is not Muslim specific. That is where we go wrong.
Okay, you've said that the Quran repeatedly says not to divide. I'm going to take a short break here, but I'm going to start with all these things that the General has said are correct, but the world laughs when they say, well, these are tall claims from a country which does not have money to pay the bills or food to eat, whereas the General says we're food sufficient. So it opens a brand new debate. Let's take a short break first. Thank you very much for staying with us. I have with me Lieutenant General Hameed, who has headed Pakistan's premier intelligence agencies and is a highly decorated officer. However, he's also, may I say, disputed. The United States has seen you personally as spearheading a lot of things which they don't appreciate. But that's not the discussion today. You've said a lot of things in the first part. You said we are food sufficient. You said China needs us, the US needs us. But at the same time, when we make these claims that that we are very strategically placed and we have high value on the table, the world laughs at us. Well, you can't pay your bills. Our leaders today, and I won't even take any names, are actually making these blatant claims of who can go and raise more money out of charity That's the call to fame. So given that we're suffering food shortages, we've got energy crisis, we've got water crisis, we have governance crisis, we're corrupt, and yet you say that we have very high value. So who's responsible for all those weaknesses?
As far as food is concerned, of course, poor people are not getting the food, but it's a problem, the distribution system, because they can't afford. Otherwise, in our stocks, there's enough food. Who says we don't have enough food? All right.
Why? And not just production capability. You're saying we are producing, it's not being distributed.
It's not being distributed properly.
As a plan, by mistake, accident?
No, I think it is because of the system which has weighed down the growth and the potential and the faculties of the people of Pakistan.
So basically incompetence.
Basically incompetence, corruption, and because we are in the wrong direction.
Okay, who's put us in that direction?
It is the West who wanted, for 9 years we were not able to make the constitution because they didn't want it to be an Islamic constitution.
Okay.
And once it was there, in spite of the objective resolution, now objective resolution is being objected to by so many liberal intellectuals of Pakistan, and they are trying to prove that it was one wrong document. There is nothing they can do about it because now it is substantive part of the constitution. And that is the direction. But it has created contradiction within the constitution. Whereas we say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is our sovereign. If He is our sovereign, then it will be His law.
Fine.
In Saudi Arabia, there is a Sharia system, they say, but there is, the law is made by the king.
Fine.
It is called Amr al-Malki. Here it has to be Amr Allah.
Okay.
It is the Allah's order. So when we say that if Allah is sovereign, and it is His law which has to prevail, the question arises, has He made the law? And where is that law? It is in the Holy Quran.
Okay.
And has been no change in the Holy Quran. That is the promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It has been shown in practice, given a model in the state of Medina in the early days. Subsequently, when you transited into Malukiyat, as they say, into the hereditary Khulafai, after Khulafai Rashidin, hereditary Khulafa, then they became kings. And that's where things started going wrong.
Okay, now, what you're saying is we've got everything going for us. We've got all the right constituency, yet we're in this unfortunate state that we are in. So are we here because we are just an incompetent nation? Are we here because our politicians are incompetent? Or are we here because someone's engineering this?
Who says that we are weak and incompetent? Because we created this country in the face of so many opposition, powerful opposition. It is one of the miracles. And you see Stanley Walpole's book, The Jinnah of Pakistan, and then you see that how he pays tribute to Jinnah, that nobody has created a country like Jinnah had created a country. This is a unique example.
Okay. So we're not an incompetent nation.
We are not incompetent. We are hardworking people. We are very resilient. Recently, I think Henry Kissinger gave this tribute to Pakistani nation that don't touch them. They are a very resilient nation.
Right.
And he said that it could even start a third world war if you try to finger Pakistan too much. You know, this is what their thinkers are saying. It is because Pakistan holds a potential to give a new system. Therefore, we have been always in the eye of the storm. They've been attacking us from all directions. And one of the tools they have used is to have us indebted. An agriculturally rich country, hard-working people. So this is what is called odious loans. It's not the word that I'm using, the term that I'm using. This was used for Cuba when about 100 years plus, when Spain had a lot of loan on Cuba. At that time they said that this is an odious loan because the people of Spain, people of Cuba had not been consulted when this loan was being taken. So any loan which the lender has to pay, but lender was not asked, the borrower was not asked. The borrower in this case has never been asked. People have gone, signed. It has been never discussed and debated in the constitution, in the parliament. And the second is that those loans are odious, which you don't have the capacity to pay, and they have not been spent on them. There are three conditions here in case of Pakistani loans. Why I describe them as the odious loan. One is that people of Pakistan have never been asked that, do you want it? Will you be willing to pay it? Second is, these were not spent on them. There are economic hitmen. You see the book. It clearly says that 60 to 70% is funneled out. Goes back to the Western economy. Then this has not been spent on them, but they have to, each Pakistani has to pay something like 50,000 rupees. Before he is born, a child who is still in the womb of his mother
is under debt.
Actually under debt to the amount of 50,000 per child, per person, per capita. Now, what is his fault? That child which is coming out in the world, an indebted child who has gobbled up his money. And then second is that you don't have the capacity to pay. What should we do with this 180 million people? Drown them in the Arabian Sea just because we owe them the loan? So my solution is moratorium, no loans to be paid. Because their loans, and there are so many countries, 13 countries of Latin America who have not, they have gone into default. And there are so many countries, including Poland, which had, at that time when the Soviet Union broke up, they had a loan of $28 billion, 17 million population, $28 billion loan.
And now Greece is going in the same direction.
We are going in the same.
Okay, so this has happened, I understand. The enemies of the country are doing this. But of course they're doing it in cahoots with our own leadership, our own politicians, our own representatives.
They are not our representative. I dispute that.
Okay.
They are not our, they are representative of a system which has been imposed on us.
Okay.
And this is not, this system 1935 Act, which is still indirectly or directly governing us, 1935 Act, which is the Anglo-Saxon law, 1935 Act, and the law of evidence given to us by the British, which never concludes a case. There are such simple laws, Islamic laws. There are such simple Islamic taxation systems, zakat and ushur, and you be done with it.
But General, how does that put these governments in place? I mean, we do elect them.
Because they are using the infrastructure of so-called theoretical infrastructure of democracy,
okay,
to perpetuate imperialism as the lackeys of imperialism. They are trying to advance their own the status quo. The forces of change and forces of status quo have been clashing ever since, I think, humanity ever appeared on these forces of status quo. There is a perpetual clash. Now that clash is between the forces of between the forces of change and the status quo. Pakistan is somewhere symbolically stand in the middle. As I told you,
and thus the pressure.
And Pakistan has three attributes to its credit. One, that it is Islamic, a dominant notion of the age. Religion has always been, but currently Islam in its resurgent stage is the dominant notion of the age, because it promises to give a new system. No new system exists, but it promises, and it is there theoretically available. Second, nation state is a new phenomena. Nationalism. You and I, we are Muslims, but we are also Pakistanis, and my Pakistaniyat does not clash at all with my Islam. They are together. And the third is democracy. It's a notion of the age. Howsoever demented, distorted it may be, but it is. And people do rally because they don't want kings. They don't want dictators. They want democracy. But democracy does not deliver. And it's a strange thing that democracy in its own birthplace, in its own house, is not delivering. In the West, it's not delivering now. Democracy is not delivering. George Bush can deceive very easily. People, they came out, they said, please don't attack Iraq. People in multitudes came out. I think it's the largest congregation in London at that time. But did the democratically elected rulers listen to them? They did not. So is it democracy? Democracy is actually the will of people must be reflected in the policies of the state.
The will of a nation has to reflect in its policies.
Now here is the will of the nation which has been clashing with the American agenda. This is where Pakistan stands today. It is being torn, the nation is being torn between the will of the nation and the demands of American agenda.
Okay, I want to ask them then once again. We make these claims of supremacy, of importance, yet we are, and we have to admit it, we are in a very, very delicate situation right now. So are the forces which are putting us in this situation, vis-a-vis our leadership, are they working as agents of destruction of the country? Are they working as agents of prosperity?
I think they are simply blocked. I don't think, I would not blame them for working deliberately, willfully, on purpose to break up the country. No, I would not.
Then I would say it's fair to say they're highly incompetent.
They are blocking the system, a new system which is to emerge. You see, Pakistan is going through what I can describe as the birth pangs. A mother gives birth to a child, it goes through birth pangs. Pakistan is destined to give birth to a new order, and therefore Pakistan is going through the birth pang. 64 years in the life of a nation are nothing, and no other nation can claim that they can survive under these conditions like we have survived. We have fought the superpowers, we are fighting them again, we have fought poverty, we have fought calamities, we have faced invasions, we have done everything. Everything that a nation can suffer, we have suffered.
Okay. We're seeing a wave of fascism or forced Islamization in our own ranks, and even the population of Pakistan is feeling uncomfortable with people breaking into schools and forcing women to dress a certain way.
No, they are the agents. They are not, I don't agree that they are the true representatives of Islam.
Okay.
You're suggesting? Because they have to, because a CNN survey some 7 or 8 years ago said 88% Pakistanis want Sharia.
Yes, I remember.
Then it was very alarming for them.
So they're trying.
It's such a vast majority.
Interesting, okay.
So Sharia has got to be, name the dog and hang it type of thing. You know, name it, label it, and then.
I understand.
But even despite all this, there is such a romance for the Islamic system among the people of Pakistan that the latest survey, Gallup Pakistan survey, says 67% Pakistanis immediately want implementation of Sharia, and the others who have not voted for it, most of them say that it should be done step by step.
So these people who are conducting these acts which is defaming the religion, are you're suggesting that these are the agents working against
they don't know, I'm not, this agent may be a very strong word to use, because they don't even know, because among them, now Aman al-Zawahiri has written a book on Pakistan's constitution, Morning and the Lamb, and in which he describes it as un-Islamic, etc., etc. No, as I said, that the three notions but combine only in Pakistan, these three notions of the age being the religion, and Pakistan, of course, is born because of this, owes its existence to religion. And second is nationalism, state nationalism, and third is democracy. We have to get this democratically, constitutionally. Nobody should force it on us. And as I tell you, the will of people is again and again yearning, and it is pressing for getting this, what they have always wished. And in that, we have got to do it democratically. And luckily, we have traveled more than half the way, I would say 90% of the way, because we have got it in the constitution. All we have to do is implement the constitution of Pakistan. When you say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is our sovereign and Mr. Zardari enjoys immunity under Article 248, he can get away with a crime, then it's contradiction. Those contradictions have to be removed.
My last question. There's obviously clearly a very planned strategy where the West starts speaking against us one day, at the same day there's another side which is speaking for us. They've spent 2 weeks bashing Pakistan, and suddenly there are articles like, Pakistan has the short end of the stick and Bush, and we see that wave. So their media is obviously playing a very, very careful and clear strategy. Have we, in today's day and time, all new media, old media, social media, they're being used as global warfare instruments. Are we using this instrument properly or not?
No, we are not, because they have coined a new, they look at the democracies and the freedom of press and freedom of media. They came up with an idea of embedded journalism. Is it really congruous with the with freedom of journalism? They are manipulating the media in order to alter, change and manage perceptions. And they're spending a lot of money on this. They are immoral, the way they are proceeding. It's a new form of colonization where they try to capture your minds and your resources, whether they are human resources or they are material resources. This is what they are doing. This is neo-colonialism. They have ended colonialism as it used to be in the past, or they say that they have
Physical
ended.
occupation is no longer important.
But now they claim that whatever resources you have, they belong to us. They may lie in your land, but our multinational, our corporate world will control them. Don't think that they are your possession and you can use it for your people. We have to use them because we are using bulk of the material resources of the world. You know, the 17% population of the world, white man is 17%, is using almost 73% of the world's resources, 0.1. Now China is coming up.
Sure.
And America's population is only 4% of the world's population. And they use 32% of world's resources. So where do they get these resources from? They have to somehow milk us. They have to milk these countries. So there are two things which are happening right now. Colonization of our resources and colonization of our minds. And they can change. If there is a story in the New York Times, it should be treated only as a story. But then everybody thinks it's America's policy, it's America's policy. But it is true that America's policy is to manipulate, use this media in order to cow us down, do whatever they want to do actually. But they are frustrated, they are losing. They have lost the war. The last battle they are fighting, imperialism is fighting its last ditch battle in Afghanistan today. And it is, I am a professional soldier, I had predicted that they will lose. Because there is a very simple professional logic about it. Intelligence is not in your control, your lines of supplies are not in your control, they are not secure, and without lines of supply there is damn all you can do. I think Napoleon said that war is nothing but the control of lines of supply. Then spaces are not in your control, the time is not in your control. These are time, space and relative strength are very important factors. The relative strength wise, they are going to grow. Each generation of the Afghans is going to come up. And they say, who are these people now? You only have firepower. But how do you use that firepower against a target which is elusive, which you can't even see? This is their problem. They've lost it.
And thus the
nature, because look at it, history produced an imbalance as soon as Soviet Union was gone. But that imbalance has been corrected because nature does not leave the imbalance forever. Nature creates its own balance. And this is strange way of nature to have produced a balance. And they picked up the Afghan nation and Pakistan, of course, adjoining it, and Pakistan very much a supporter of Afghan nation, because people talk about Afghanistan security, this strategic depth, etc. That's a nonsense term. It has never been used. Let me tell you, in the military manuals, there is no mention of strategic depth. With India, exclude the line of control, and then we have 2,500 kilometers border with Afghanistan. And we have 1,000 kilometers border with Iran.
We can't turn them all hostile to us.
How can we say that? How can it possible? It is our survival. But yet Malan says, move your forces from the eastern border to the western border. All this is going on because they have lost the war. The new system is to emerge. They want that Pakistan, by becoming secular, should actually be confronting now hostile Afghanistan in the future. We should go back to the British border. And this is what our establishment, military establishment, is resisting. Simple as that. That is what the problem in reality is.
And this is what they're using media for.
This is what our media as well as their own media.
So you do agree that we have maybe failed this battle of media?
Failed? No, we will win, because what is won on the battlefield That cannot be reversed. You can't pull out victory out of the jaws of defeat on the battlefield, no matter what you do.
Okay, I said last question, but I would like to continue for a moment here. Our armed forces have been pushed on the back foot in the recent months. The international media and both domestic media played a role in that. Even though I'm part of this media, I will admit to it. We played a part in it. Has the Pakistan Army failed the world in any way? And is it fair to accuse our intelligence agencies, our army, our armed forces the way they have been accused?
How have we failed the world? We owe nothing to the world. The world owes a great deal to us.
Interesting.
Soviet Red Menace was destroyed by us. And then we say we failed. This is little tiny Pakistan with very few resources. I can tell you the Americans didn't even spend $5 billion in winning the war against Soviet Union in Afghanistan. $5 billion. Today they are spending $126 billion on their military operations alone. Each American soldier in Afghanistan is costing them $1 million every year. And yet they are nowhere. They are being defeated. They are being defeated. So, do they owe us or we owe them? In reality, if they are today the sole superpower, which they will not be already, if they are sole superpower, they should win. Basically, this is simple as that. That's the reality.
And we did make them, we did help them become
we did help them, but now they are frustrated because in spite of this, how are they going to explain this? If you remember in the WikiLeaks, they came up with 8 charges against me that I am conducting this war and I am calling the shots and I am strategizing the operations of Taliban, etc. And Fareed Zakaria on his show on the CNN, he took me for half an hour and he asked me this question. I said, look, first of all, this is all nonsense, it's fictitious, and it is the doing of the Indian intelligence who is controlling the national intelligence of Afghanistan. And all these reports have been emanating from those sources. But even if we were to believe that I did this, my nation and my people and my generations are going to be proud of me, that he had a role in defeating one superpower, but he has a role in defeating another superpower also. So whatever you want to do with me, it doesn't matter, because this role you are giving to me, I mean you are giving me this credit. But how are you going to teach the American children, how are they going to read the history? That if you were defeated, who defeated you? Your generals, your Pentagon, your CIA. One retired 74 years old general living in Pakistan, living in his house, he was able to strategize in such a way that he defeated your forces in Afghanistan. No, this is nonsense. It's sheer frustration. They don't know how to explain it.
So
they don't know. They do not understand. You see, because materialism does not understand the power of the faith. The power of the moral and material are clashing like they have never clashed before. The most mighty power in the world history, along with friends and foes together, they've just assembled in Afghanistan. Nearly 56 nations, some directly, some indirectly, about 42, and others are. And they're being defeated. At the hands of who? Is it not a miracle? Is it not thereafter going to change the world? They say 9/11 was the landmark. It's sort of watershed. But I tell you, American withdrawal out of Afghanistan is going to be the watershed. And the only man who really understood was Tony Blair. When in Lashkargah in Helmand province, he stood addressing his troops. And that was probably his last address. He said, the destiny of the world is going to be decided in the hills and dales of Afghanistan. Destiny of the world. Yes.
And that stands true.
And he was right. I agree with him. Yes. That destiny is being decided. And history's verdict is in our favor. No matter what we are doing, we are suffering at the moment. We are paying a huge price in blood, tear and sweat, but we have won it.
You're a fantastical force. Hameed Gul is this fantastic superhuman being who can wage a war on the whole world. Who were those fantastical forces who managed to start from Pakistan, get hundreds of kilometers in Afghanistan, attack the embassy and come back? Who were those forces?
No.
Who were those magical forces?
No magical force. They are Afghans. You remember 2 days later, there was an attack on the CIA compound next to Ariana Hotel. And who did that? It was an Afghan. And what was the claim? That his mind had been changed. He was told that these are occupation forces, they are our enemies, and you got to do your duty to your country. If Americans are doing their duty to the country, Afghans are doing their duty to the country or resisting their occupation.
Somebody also said the other day that, the same Afghans fought a war of freedom against Russia. So is it okay for them to fight another war of freedom against the US because they are being occupied still?
Yes, principle is the same.
Principle is the same.
Why not?
Thank you so much. It's
Thank
been
you.
a pleasure.